So here I am. I decided to talk about piñatas. So when I was in my early 20s, I spent some time in El Salvador. And when I was there, I fell in love with the country, fell in love with the people, and I was amazed by the fact that if their kid has a birthday, they just throw together a piñata. And they were awesome piñatas. They were big and they were hard and just really, really cool piñatas. And so I said, okay, that's awesome. Like someday when I, grow up and have kids, I'm going to do these, or I'm going to get these piñatas for my kids. So fast forward a few years and I'm married and I have my first son and he's about to turn 3 and I think, okay, is it still working? Okay. And I think, okay, it's time to figure out what we're going to do for a piñata. So I start looking at the stores and nothing was good enough. Like nothing measured up to these cool piñatas that I had seen in El Salvador. And so I started looking at other stores, finding Hispanic stores, and just couldn't find something that was good enough. So I said, okay, I'm going to make a piñata. It's going to be big and it's going to be awesome. So I started looking online. I'd never made a piñata before. Started looking online, trying to figure out how do I do this. Found on Google all sorts of ideas and instructions and just kind of put something together. So I made, after a couple months of hard work, my first piñata. It's that Nemo piñata right there. Small child for scale. But you can see it's a little bit rough. The eyes were just kind of colored in. I couldn't figure out how to do the eyes. They didn't look as cool as the piñatas that I had seen online, but it worked and it was fun. And it took some serious work to crack that thing open because I did a lot of layers on that. But one thing I struggled with as I was making this piñata and as my piñatas progressed is I would look online and look for more ideas on how to make these different shapes for these piñatas that I wanted. And I was frustrated that my piñatas just did not look like the ones I found online. They weren't as cool looking. They weren't as good looking. And it frustrated me and it bothered me. And so I kept looking and there were nights where and this is ridiculous, right? Because it's a piñata, it's not that big of a deal. But there were nights where I would lay awake just thinking in my mind, what can I do to make these piñatas better? How can I make these shapes better looking? And so I progressed, and eventually that feeling went away because I realized, and I learned an important lesson here, my piñatas still don't look like the ones I see online. They still don't look maybe quite as polished, but that's okay because they're my piñatas, and I make them the way I like them and the way I think they need to be made. But making piñatas, aside from that lesson, also taught me a couple other important lessons. One, stop comparing, like I just mentioned, not just in piñatas, but throughout our lives. We are all going to run into people or into situations where we're going to think, oh, this person is so much smarter than me. This person is so much more experienced than me. I'll never be like that. Don't think that. Just be yourself. Be who you are capable of being. And get there in the way that suits you. And then the last lesson that I learned, and I feel like this gentleman touched on that a little bit, is just like piñatas, we all have greatness inside us, but sometimes it takes a few good hits to get it out.